Hello and welcome back to our Chronological by One Year reading plan. Today is day 217 and we are reading 2 Kings 22 and 23 along with 2 Chronicles 34 and 35. Here we go. 2 Kings chapter 22. Yoshayahu was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Yedidah, I'm going to say Yedidah, the daughter of Adiah of Bozkath. And he did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah, and walked in all the ways of his father David, and did not turn aside right or left. And it came to be in the 18th year of sovereign Yoshayahu that the sovereign sent Shaphan the scribe, son of Atzalyahu, son of Meshullam, to the house of Yahuwah, saying, Go up to Hilkiyahu the Kohen, the Kohen Hagadol, which means the high priest, and let him weigh the silver which has been brought into the house of Yahuwah, which the doorkeepers have gathered from the people. And let them give it into the hand of those doing the work, who are the overseers in the house of Yahuwah. And let them give it to those who are in the house of Yahuwah doing the work to repair the damages of the house, to carpenters, and to builders, and to stonemasons, and to buy timber and hewn stone to repair the house. However, let not the silver given into their hand be reckoned with them, for they are acting trustworthily. And Hilkiyahu, the Kohen Hagadol, said to Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the Torah in the house of Yahuwah. And Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan, and he read it. And Shaphan the scribe came to the sovereign, and brought word to the sovereign again, saying, Your servants have gathered the silver that was found in the house, and have given it into the hand of those who do the work, who oversee the house of Yahuwah. And Shaphan the scribe informed the sovereign, saying, Hilkiah the Kohen has given me a book. And Shaphan read it before the sovereign. And it came to be, when the sovereign heard the words of the book of the Torah, that he tore his garments. And the sovereign commanded Hilkiah the Kohen, and Ahikam, son of Shaphan, and Akbor, son of Micaiah, and Shaphan the scribe, and Asaiah the servant of the sovereign, saying, Go, inquire of Yahuwah for me, for the people, and for all Yehudah, concerning the words of this book that has been found. For great is the wrath of Yahuwah that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not obeyed the words of this book, to do according to all that is written concerning us. Then Hilkiyahu the Kohen, and Ahikam, and Akbor, and Shaphan, and Asaiah went to Huldah the Nebiah, I'm guessing female prophet, the wife of Shallum, son of Tikwa, son of Harhas, keeper of the wardrobe. Now she was dwelling in Jerusalem in the 2nd quarter, and they spoke with her. And she said to them, Thus said Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael, Say to the man who sent you to me, Thus said Yahuwah, See, I am bringing evil on this place and on its inhabitants, all the words of the book which the sovereign of Yehudah has read, because they have forsaken me and burned incense to other mighty ones to provoke me with all the works of their hands. And so my wrath shall be kindled against this place and not be quenched. And to the sovereign of Yehudah, who sent you to inquire of Yahuwah, say this to him, Thus said Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael, As for the words which you have heard, because your heart was tender, and you humbled yourself before Yahuwah when you heard what I spoke against this place and against its inhabitants, that they would become a ruin and a curse, and tore your garments and wept before me, I also have heard, declares Yahuwah. Therefore see, I am gathering you to your fathers, and you shall be gathered to your grave in peace, so that your eyes do not see all the evil I am bringing on this place. And they brought word to the sovereign. And chapter 23. And the sovereign sent, and they gathered all the elders of Yehudah and Jerusalem to him. And the sovereign went up to the house of Yahuwah with all the men of Yehudah, and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the Kohanim, again the priests, and the Nebiim, the prophets, and all the people, both small and great. And he read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant which had been found in the house of Yahuwah. And the sovereign stood by the column and made a covenant before Yahuwah, to follow Yahuwah, and to guard his commands, and his witnesses, and his laws, with all his heart and all his being, to establish the words of this covenant that were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant. Then the sovereign commanded Hilkiyahu, the Kohen Hagadol, and the Kohanim of the 2nd order, and the doorkeepers, to bring out of the Hakal, which is the temple, of Yahuwah all the objects that were made for Baal and for Asherah, and all the host of the Shemaim. And he burned them outside Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and took their ashes to Beth-el. And he put down the black-robed priests, whom the sovereigns of Yehudah had appointed to burn incense on the high places in the cities of Yehudah, and the places all around Jerusalem, and those who burned incense to Baal, to the sun, to the moon, and to the constellations, and to all the hosts of the Shemaim. And he brought out the Asherah from the house of Yahuwah to the Wadi Kidron, the valley Kidron, outside Jerusalem, and burned it at the Wadi Kidron, and ground it to ashes, and threw its ashes on the graves of the sons of the people. Woof. And he broke down the houses of the male cult prostitutes that were in the house of Yahuwah, where the women wove tapestries for the Asherah. And he brought all the Kohanim from the cities of Yehudah, and defiled the high places where the priests had burned incense, from Geba to Beersheba, and broke down the high places at the gates which were at the entrance of the gate of Yehoshua, the governor of the city, which were to the left of the city gate. However, the priests of the high places did not come up to the altar of Yahuwah in Jerusalem, but they ate unleavened bread among their brothers. And he defiled Topheth, which is in the valley of Ben Hinnom, so that no man could make his son or his daughter pass through the fire to Molech. And he did away with the horses that the sovereigns of Yehudah had given to the sun, at the entrance of the house of Yahuwah by the room of Nathan Melech the eunuch, that were in the court. And he burned the chariots of the sun with fire. And the altars that were on the roof of the upper room of Ahaz, which the sovereigns of Yehudah had made, and the altars which Manasseh had made in the two courtyards of the house of Yahuwah, the sovereign broke down, and rushed from there, and threw their dust into the Wadi Kidron. And the sovereign defiled the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the mountain of destruction, which Shelomo, sovereign of Israel, built for Ashtoreth, the abomination of the Sidonians, and for Chemosh, the abomination of the Moabites, and for Milcom, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And he broke in pieces the pillars, and cut down the Asherim, and filled their places with the bones of men. And also the altar that was at Beth-el, in the high place which Jeroboam son of Nebat made, by which he made Yisrael sin, both that altar and the high place he broke down. And he burned the high place, and ground it to dust, and burned the Asherah. Then Yoshayahu turned, and saw the tombs that were there on the mountain. And he sent and took the bones out of the tombs, and burned them on the altar, and defiled it according to the word of Yahuwah, which the man of Elohim proclaimed, who proclaimed these words. And he said, What tombstone is this that I see? And the men of the city said to him, It is the tomb of the man of Elohim who came from Yehudah, and proclaimed these matters which you have done against the altar of Beth-el. And he said, Let him alone, let no one move his bones. So they left his bones alone, with the bones of the Nabi who came from Shomeron. And Yoshayahu also took away all the houses of the high places that were in the cities of Shomeron, which the sovereigns of Israel had made to provoke. And he did to them according to all the deeds he did in Beth-el. And he slaughtered all the priests of the high places who were there on the altars, and burned men's bones on them, and went back to Jerusalem. And the sovereign commanded all the people, saying, Prepare the Pesach, which is the Passover, to Yahuwah your Elohim, as it is written in this book of the covenant. For such a Pesach had not been prepared since the days of the rulers who ruled Israel, nor in all the days of the sovereigns of Israel and the sovereigns of Yehudah. But in the 18th year of sovereign Yoshayahu, this Pesach was prepared before Yahuwah in Jerusalem. And also Yoshayahu put away those who consulted mediums and spiritists, and the household mighty ones and idols, and all the abominations that were seen in the land of Yehudah and in Jerusalem, in order to establish the words of the Torah which are written in the book that Hilkiyahu the Kohen found in the house of Yahuwah. And before him there was no sovereign like him, who turned back to Yahuwah with all his heart, and with all his being, and with all his might, according to all the Torah of Moshe, and after him none rose up like him. However, Yahuwah did not turn from the fierceness of his great wrath, with which his wrath burned against Yehudah, because of all the provocations with which Manasseh had provoked him. And Yahuwah said, Even Yehudah I shall remove from my presence, as I have removed Israel, and I shall reject the city Jerusalem which I have chosen, and the name of which I said, My name is there. And the rest of the acts of Yoshayahu and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehudah? In his days, Pharaoh Necho sovereign of Mitzrayim, went up against the sovereign of Ashur to the river Parath. And sovereign Yoshayahu went out to him, and he killed him at Megiddo when he saw him. And his servants conveyed his body in a chariot from Megiddo, and brought him to Jerusalem, and buried him in his own tomb. And the people of the land took Jehoahaz, son of Yoshayahu, and anointed him, and appointed him to reign in his father's place. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Yirmeyahu of Libnah. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, according to all his fathers did. And Pharaoh Necho imprisoned him at Riblah in the land of Hamath, to keep him from reigning in Jerusalem. And he imposed on the land a fine of 100 kikars of silver and a kikar of gold. And Pharaoh Necho appointed Eliakim, son of Yoshayahu, to reign in place of his father Yoshayahu, and changed his name to Jehoiakim. And Pharaoh took Jehoahaz and went to Mitzrayim, and he died there. And Jehoiakim gave the silver and gold to Pharaoh. Only he taxed the land to give silver according to the command of Pharaoh. He exacted the silver and gold from the people of the land, from everyone according to his assessment, to give it to Pharaoh Necho. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Zebidah, the daughter of Pedaiah of Rumah. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, according to all that his fathers did. Yikes. Okay, over to 2nd Chronicles. And that is chapter 34 and 35. We are reading 2nd Chronicles 34. Yoshayahu was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. And he did what was right in the eyes of Yahweh, and walked in the ways of his father David, and did not turn aside right or left. And in the 8th year of his reign, while he was still young, he began to seek the Elohim of his father David. And in the 12th year he began to cleanse Yehudah and Jerusalem from the high places, and the Asherim, and the carved images, and the molded images. And they broke down the altars of the Baals in his presence, and the sun pillars which were above them he cut down. And the Asherim, and the carved images, and the molded images he destroyed, and ground them up, and scattered it on the graves of those who had offered to them. And he burned the bones of the priests on their altars, and cleansed Yehudah and Jerusalem. And the cities of Manasseh, and Ephraim, and Shimon, as far as Naphtali, in their ruins all around. And he broke down the altars and the Asherim, and ground the carved images into dust, and cut down all the sun pillars throughout all the land of Israel, and returned to Jerusalem. And in the 18th year of his reign, when he had cleansed the land and the house, he sent Shaphan, son of Atzalyahu, and Maasayahu, the head of the city, and Joah, son of Joahaz, the recorder, to repair the house of Yahweh his Elohim. And they went to Hilkiyahu the Kohen Hagadol, and they gave the silver that was brought into the house of Elohim, which the Levites who kept the doors had gathered from the hand of Manasseh and Ephraim, and from all the remnant of Israel, and from all Yehudah and Benjamin, and which they had brought back to Jerusalem. And they gave it in the hand of the workmen, those appointed over the house of Yahweh. And they gave it to the workmen who worked in the house of Yahweh, to repair and strengthen the house. And they gave it to the craftsmen and to the builders, to buy hewn stone and timber for couplings and for beams, for the houses which the sovereigns of Yehudah had destroyed. And the men did the work trustworthily. And over them were appointed Yahath and Obadiahu, the Levites of the sons of Merari, and Zechariah and Meshullam of the sons of the Kehathites, to oversee, and of the Levites, all of whom were skilled in instruments of song, and over the burden bearers and overseers of all who did work in any kind of service. And of the Levites were scribes and officers and gatekeepers. And when they brought out the silver that was brought into the house of Yahweh, Hilkiyahu the Kohen found the book of the Torah of Yahweh given by Moshe. Then Hilkiyahu responded and said to Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the Torah in the house of Yahweh. And Hilkiyahu gave the book to Shaphan. And Shaphan brought the book to the sovereign, and brought the sovereign word, saying, All that has been given into the hand of your servants they are doing, and they have poured out the silver that was found in the house of Yahweh, and have given it into the hand of those appointed and the workmen. And Shaphan the scribe informed the sovereign, saying, Hilkiah the Kohen has given me a book. And Shaphan read it before the sovereign. And it came to be, when the sovereign heard the words of the Torah, that he tore his garments. And the sovereign commanded Hilkiah, Ahikam, son of Shaphan, and Abdon, son of Micah, and Shaphan the scribe, and Asaiah, a servant of the sovereign, saying, Go, inquire of Yahuwah for me, and for him who is left in Israel and in Yehudah, concerning the words of the book that is found. For great is the wrath of Yahuwah that is poured out on us, because our fathers have not guarded the word of Yahuwah, to do according to all that is written in this book. Then Hilkiah and those of the sovereign went to Huldah, the Nebiah, the wife of Shallum, son of Tokath, son of Hasra, keeper of the wardrobe, who was dwelling in Jerusalem in the second quarter. And they spoke to her about this. And she said to them, Thus said Yahuwah, Elohim of Yisrael, say to the man who sent you to me, Thus said Yahuwah, See, I am bringing evil on this place and on its inhabitants, all the curses that are written in the book, which they have read before the sovereign of Yehudah, because they have forsaken me and burned incense to other mighty ones, to provoke me with all the works of their hands. Therefore my wrath is poured out on this place, and is not quenched. And to the sovereign of Yehudah, who sent you to inquire of Yahuwah, say this to him, Thus said Yahuwah, Elohim of Yisrael, whose words you have heard. Because your heart was tender, and you humbled yourself before Elohim, when you heard his words against this place and against its inhabitants, and you humbled yourself before me, and you tore your garments and wept before me, I also have heard, declares Yahuwah. See, I am gathering you to your fathers, and you shall be gathered to your grave in peace, so that your eyes would not see all the evil that I am bringing on this place and its inhabitants. So they brought back word to the sovereign. And the sovereign sent and gathered all the elders of Yehudah and Jerusalem. And the sovereign went up to the house of Yahuwah with all the men of Yehudah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and the Kohanim and the Levites and all the people, both great and small. And he read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant which had been found in the house of Yahuwah. And the sovereign stood in his place and made a covenant before Yahuwah, to follow Yahuwah, and to guard his commands, and his witnesses, and his laws, with all his heart and all his being, to do the words of the covenant that were written in this book. And he made stand tall all who were present in Jerusalem and Benjamin. And the inhabitants of Jerusalem did according to the covenant of the Elohim of their fathers. And Yoshiyahu removed all the abominations from all the lands that belonged to the children of Yisrael, and made all who were present in Yisrael diligently serve Yahuwah their Elohim. All his days they did not turn away from following Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. And we have one more chapter, 35. And Yoshiyahu performed a Pesach, again a Passover, to Yahuwah in Jerusalem, and they slaughtered the Pesach on the 14th day of the first month. And he appointed the Kohanim in their duties and strengthened them for the service of the house of Yahuwah, and said to the Levites who were teaching all Yisrael, who were Kadesh, which means holy or set apart, who were Kadesh to Yahuwah, put the Kadesh ark in the house which Shlomo, son of David, sovereign of Israel, built. It is no longer to be a burden on your shoulders. Now serve Yahuwah your Elohim and all his people. Now serve Yahuwah your Elohim and his people Yisrael, and prepare by the fathers' houses according to your divisions, by the writing of David, sovereign of Israel, and by the writing of Shlomo his son. And stand in the Kadesh place by the divisions of your fathers' houses of your brothers, the lay people, and the portion of the father's house of the Levites. And slaughter the Pesach, and kadosh yourselves, which means sanctify yourselves or set yourselves apart. And prepare for your brothers to do according to the word of Yahuwah by the hand of Moshe. And Yoshiyahu gave the lay people lambs and young goats from the flock, all for Pesach for everyone present, to the number of 30,000, and 3,000 cattle. These were from the sovereign's possessions. And his leaders contributed a voluntary offering to the people, to the Kohanim, and to the Levites. Hilkiah and Zechariah and Yehiel, leaders of the house of Elohim, gave to the Kohanim for the Pesach 2,600 and 300 cattle, and Conaniah, his brothers Shemayahu and Nethanel, and Hashabyahu, and Yehiel, and Yozabad, chiefs of the Levites, gave to the Levites for Pesach offerings 5,000 and 500 cattle. And the service was prepared, and the Kohanim stood in their places, and the Levites in their divisions, according to the command of the sovereign. And they slaughtered the Pesah. And the Kohanim sprinkled out of their hands, while the Levites were skinning. And they removed the burnt offerings to give them to the divisions of the fathers' houses of the lay people, to bring to Yahuwah, as it is written in the book of Moshe, and the same with the cattle. So they roasted the Pesah with fire, according to the right ruling, and they boiled the Kadesh offerings in pots, and in cauldrons, and in bowls, and brought them speedily to all the lay people. And afterward they prepared for themselves and for the Kohanim, because the Kohanim, the sons of Aaron, were offering burnt offerings and fat until night. So the Levites prepared for themselves and for the Kohanim, the sons of Aaron. And the singers, the sons of Asaph, were in their places, according to the command of David and Asaph and Heman, and Jeduthun, the seer of the sovereign. And the gatekeepers at each gate did not have to leave their position, because their brothers, the Levites, prepared for them. And all the service of Yahuwah was prepared that day, to perform the Pesach, and to offer burnt offerings on the altar of Yahuwah, according to the command of sovereign Yoshayahu. And the children of Israel who were present performed the Pesach at that time, and the festival of Matzoth for 7 days. There had not been a Pesach performed in Israel like it, since the days of Shemuel the Nabi. And none of the sovereigns of Israel had performed such a Pesach as Yoshayahu performed, with the Kohanim and the Levites and all Yehudah and Israel who were present, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. In the 18th year of the reign of Yoshayahu, this Pesach was performed. After all this, when Yoshayahu had prepared the house, Necho, sovereign of Mitzrayim, came up to fight against Carchemish by Parath. And Yoshayahu went out against him. And he sent messengers to him, saying, What have I to do with you, sovereign of Yehudah? I am not coming against you this day, but against the house with which I am fighting. For Elohim commanded me to make haste. Leave Elohim alone, who is with me, lest he destroy you. However, Yoshayahu would not turn his face from him, but disguised himself to fight against him, and did not listen to the words of Necho from the mouth of Elohim, and came to fight in the valley of Megiddo. And the archers shot at sovereign Yoshayahu, and the sovereign said to his servants, Take me away, for I am severely wounded. And his servants took him out of that chariot, and put him in the second chariot that he had, and they brought him to Jerusalem. And he died, and was buried in one of the tombs of his fathers. And all Yehudah and Jerusalem were mourning for Yoshayahu. And Yirmiyahu lamented for Yoshayahu. And to this day all the singing men and the singing women speak of Yoshayahu in their lamentations, and make it a law in Israel. And see, they are written in the laments. And the rest of the acts of Yoshayahu, and his kindness, according to what was written in the Torah of Yahuwah, and his acts from the first to the last, see, they are written in the book of the sovereigns of Israel and Yehudah. And that concludes our reading today. As always, I thank you for joining, and I hope you're reading along, and I encourage you to read for yourself. And peace and blessings and love to you. See you in the next one.